I clicked the links, join channel here over at Subscribestar. I got a mailbox that'll mail me some comics. So a man plays a woman who plays a shark because Weimar. Aquaman of the Lost Kingdom director, some idiot, reveals he completely changed the film's version of the shark-human hybrid. It's now a powerful female Atlantean politician instead of a human shark. Except there's a little bit more, as we'll get into. So what happened before all this kind of is, you got to kind of look at how the Amber Heard Johnny Depp drama, how that could possibly affect the movie. Probably not much. People are really into their CGI, just nonsense, basically. I'm not sure if this is Aquaman 2 or 3. I kind of feel like I might have missed the sequel. I started getting behind on these movies a few years ago, and I realized, oh yeah, that's fine. they're not worth watching. So the last Aquaman did over $1 billion, and this is probably going to do all right, even though it does feel like the wind is just kind of sucked out of the sails of this entire genre. But if anything, maybe DC can learn from the mistakes of Marvel. Like, yeah, they're not going to do that. Oh, as we'll get into, in this article, they very much are not learning from the mistakes of Marvel. And it feels like kind of the wind is being sucked out of Hollywood in general. Like I say, I think you're going to see in the next 5 to 10 years a massive restructuring of Hollywood as eventually, even they run out of Larry Fink's money, which I guess is really your money. This is not the mistake. This kind of movie of the vaginas with Brie Larson that is not doing so well. The thing is, over a long enough timeline, the Marvels might even make money on streaming. You never know. This is at least has male leads, which makes more sense for these type of movies. Enjoy this art. It's by Ethan Van Sciver. I looked at the art, and go, oh, that's pretty cool. And then I saw who did it. I was like, oh, Ethan. I was not into this character, so I was not actually aware of who EVS was before I got into Comicsgate. Anyway, so this has got male leads, which people are into. These movies don't have acting or stories. What's that guy I was talking about? That Scorsese? He was talking about how stupid these movies are. And the more I looked at it, I go, yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, your movies are also stupid too, in a different way. And like you're pretentious with your stupid movies because it's all propaganda. You're only allowed to make what the puppet masters, BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, allow you to make. So just because you're within this narrow window dancing to their tune and you're pretentious about it, it's like you're still a puppet for these masters. And this stuff is stupid, but at least it's honestly stupid. It's all just CGI made for foreign markets nonsense. In fact, the original Aquaman did like $350 million domestically, which actually isn't that good. But then it did something like $800 million in the foreign markets, which is because it was all just CGI, laser beams out of people's eyeballs kind of nonsense where the story didn't matter. I don't know if it had too much of a story. So these movies don't focus on, God, I love these old comics. What was this old four color process? These movies don't have acting or stories. They don't have to. They have CGI. That's it. And the best example I always go back to is that Transformers with Megan Fox running. She's in a green screen room. Everything's green, and she's running across a desert, and you have all these just CGI monsters in the background. That's pretty much what these movies are, where the language and the translation into Chinese doesn't really matter. It's just CGI stuff. And hey, the Transformers was fun. Where they go to China and they're having the battle in some Chinese city. That was, hey, that worked for me. So they have CGI, and that's it. And without CGI fight scenes, they'd have to try to tell stories that make sense, and they can't do that. And there's a lot of reasons why they can't do that. And it's kind of another video. But the thing is, a lot of this stuff at its core is very politically incorrect. I know that sounds weird, but it is. It's kind of this battle between globalist propaganda and the concept of nationalism, which is the concept of boundaries, I guess. So I was out walking last night, and I was comparing 77 Star Wars with their use of practical effects because they had no choice. They had to make models, and the models were fantastic. And they were using fiber optics for the lights on those ships. And some of those, the ships were like 10 feet long, and they had to run thousands of fiber optic lights and try not to melt the model. But those kind of practical effects, which looks friggin' fantastic, especially after they did some, admittedly they went through and did some CGI to clean them up, but they look fantastic back in '77. I mean, before our time, but back in the '80s when we saw the stuff on TV what was TV, like 500 lines of resolution or something. And the thing is, that's one thing where low resolution actually helps because everything's a little bit blurred. But that's good for storytelling, and that's good for actors too because they're a little bit soft focus lens, so they can work older and older. Anyway, but I was comparing the practical effects to the Marvel CGI, and I started to think about it because that's one of the criticisms of the Marvels was like these women just went from fight scene to pointless dialogue to just some fight scene, and it's like if it wasn't for CGI, they wouldn't have a movie. I kind of feel like I should go through that movie, download it, you rip it, and then pull out scenes like that. Anyway, so maybe it's that there's the more of these movies that come out, I kind of realize how stupid they are. And as much as I enjoyed comics, and I still do enjoy these old comics, I understand how dumb most of Marvel was. But more importantly, how evil and stupid the people who make movies are because you got social media now. You're able to look behind the scenes. Like, you see Chris Evans in these stupid movies. You think, oh, hey, these movies are stupid, admittedly, but they're kind of fun. Robert Downey Jr., they're playing these characters. And then you read their social media, and you're like, whoa, these people are legitimately to the left of the bell curve, but they're in this wealthy echo chamber, gated communities, just protected by wealth. They're able to say all this the ridiculous things about, open borders type of stuff, and you're like, you live in a lily white gated community with armed guards, and you have these ridiculous. Oh no, you understand? We can fund all these things and have open borders and have health in every size and have health care and fun and all these foreign country wars. And you're like, that's not how money works. Oh, don't worry, we'll print more. Anyway, so I enjoy these. I enjoy the comics for nostalgia, but I dig the monsters and horror comics and war comics from World War II more. Obviously, the war in the Pacific for obvious reasons. So too much of DC and Marvel was throwing crap against the wall and seeing what sticks. As an adult, I enjoy more tribal, national, blood, family-based storytelling. And as an adult, I can see the difference between globalist storytelling and nationalist storytelling. And then you look around and goes, oh, it's like 99% globalist propaganda. And Vox Day has some stories out there. I think you can read them free online somewhere. I was checking them out. I was surprised by how good a writer he is, even though he did block me on Gap for some reason. When you're too much of a shitlord for Vox Day. Anyway, so too much of Marvel and DC is just globalist propaganda. And when these movies kicked off in 2008 with Iron Man, I thought that was a really solid first movie for what it is. No, it's not Shakespeare. It's a movie about a robot suit guy in the Middle East, but it worked. I mean, for what it was, that's how I'm judging all these movies. It worked really well. It was a change of pace. The guy started off as kind of a, alcoholic, bad guy, but he has to go through some character building development. It's like, yeah, it could have been a lot better. And honestly, like now it's 2008, you could probably go back and reboot the thing and just retell the story again. But I mean, they wouldn't because it was in 2008. It was set in that warm, sandy region, and the bad guys were those warm, sandy people. And then in Black Adam, which was a few years ago, with The Rock, they're in that warm, sandy region, except the bad guys are now English. Because you can't even make the bad guys who are actually in that region because everything has to be this anti-white globalist propaganda. Anyway, so 2008 Iron Man was a fun change of pace, but the suspension of disbelief was broken as they kept doing these movies and they got more diversity and more vagina power, and people hate all that kind of stuff. I say it all the time. I hate diversity. Probably that's why I'm sitting out 12 hours on Twitter right now. And it's like every month I get like a week off from Twitter, but they don't point to anything specific. People just mass report the account because they're a bunch of soy pussies. Anyway, so I look at these movies now with almost no interest. The Marvels was exceptionally bad, but there were a lot of bombs before that. Even if they broke even or even if they made money, it's like it still didn't make them good movies. Like I said, on a long enough timeline for these movies, a lot of them that you think are bombs will probably start to break even because they'll go to streaming and they help the streaming platform. It's just by having so much stuff available for Disney Plus, or what's HBO? Does HBO do Warner Brothers, I think? Anyway, the thing is, there's enough sheep, unfortunately, to keep these movies going. I don't know. We'll find out what the Marvels are doing. So far, it's not doing too well, but what kind of legs does it have? I don't know. Maybe there's another video in there a week from now with the pun on Brie Larson's giant opening and legs. Yeah, I'm immature. I just accelerate into it. Anyway, we got Comicsgate now, and I have a mailbox, and you could send me comics. I'm not sorry for shilling. It works. LG sent me the Batman, which was absolutely not the Batman, the '86 Batman Dark Knight. That was fan-friggin-tastic. Vegan sent me the Green Arrow, the trilogy series, which was actually in '87. That was fantastic too. Maybe it's that kind of. I think like comics was great up until 1990. Like before 1990, there was a whole lot of really good stuff from the 40s to the 90s. And you look at that, and you're like, yeah, that was 30 years ago. Oh. Yeah. I mean, after the 90s, people go like, the 90s comics were so good. Honestly, I know that's a Comicsgate kind of stereotype. I don't know how true that is. And where I look back at these 60s comics, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s comics, I think there's a lot of good stuff in that era as well. Probably better. I would say it's way back then. It's like, well, now you're going back 50, 60 years. And like, yeah, there's no saving mainstream comics. Anyway, yeah, send me comics. That's why I paid for that mailbox. And somebody just bought me a computer, so I'm going to get that set up today, and I will start some live streams, probably mostly on Rumble and Odyssey, because I just don't know how I can stay PC enough for YouTube, because YouTube is so strict. Where Rumble and Odyssey is just a little bit looser. So anyway, back in the old days, most of the characters were from the comic books were, blue or blue-eyed, blonde-haired, or red hair, green. I mean, because they're using the 4-color process, so a lot of the reason they did that was to be visually distinct, because you just couldn't. The characters had to pop off the page, and like hair so black it was blue, like they did, or red hair, or green hair, or blue hair, or what am I trying to say? Blonde hair. But they're European-based characters, which a lot of people could identify with. But Disney now is run by anti-white globalists, so they all got erased and replaced with these non-European actors. In fact, this is the crux of the story right here. So the whole thing is just boring now. I don't care about these bullshit found family Frankfurt School nonsense. That's the technique they use. I've talked about it before. It's just Saul Alinsky level of cringe propaganda. Look, a diverse group of diversity, except not European diversity. There's no Swedish, Irish, German, Polish, Russian, whatever. It's all just, and they all get along, and they all hate blonde people together. So, because every story has to be a German metaphor, bad for obvious reasons. So comics suck, and these movies suck. All of Hollywood sucks. If you want entertainment, you're going to have to roll your own, and I'm not suffering from depression and confirmation bias. I actually feel great, and I'm taking my own advice. My hobby is this: being a tinfoil hat, Hugo Boss, basement-dwelling, grass and vagina-touching entertainment creator. But Bianca, when are you going to start entertaining? You people are so cruel to me. Anyway, so you've got this tiger shark in 1963 who gets some radiation, mutates into a shark man, and the antagonist is born. But in 2023, you have a man playing a woman who was formerly known as Tiger Shark Man, but now it's a skinny man with lipstick and earrings, and he's playing a woman in the movie because why not? Rob Schneider is a carrot. Remember South Park? The Cartman robot was the artificial intelligence that had to think of movie ideas, and it was all Adam Sandler movies. And what's her face? A chick who's in like 4 Adam Sandler movies for some reason. Then Weinstein came along and tried to snuggle Eric Cartman, because South Park was way ahead of their time. Almost it's funny how those politically incorrect. That's why we gotta take down South Park, because was it Leishman at the Mary Sue guys? They're telling both sides of a story, and there are no 2 sides to a story. There's only our side. Oh, Leishman, poor chubby Leishman. She's gonna have to find herself a man and get some kids. Anyway, so do you want to see the skinny dude play a woman playing a tiger shark? I mean, the big reason this movie hit was because Jason Momoa was popular at the time, and the chicks were willing to go see this movie because you got to see him run around. And Amber Heard at the time didn't have that Johnny Depp stuff, at least in the first movie, and now she does. So the bloom is off the rose for Hollywood and Marvel and DC. It's just all of Hollywood. It's just not what it used to be. Things are just getting too weird because movies aren't made in a vacuum. I mean, these movies are these hateful left-wing anti-white propaganda, and then you're looking at the news, you're like, oh yeah, people hate each other in real life. People are getting way more tribal, but in these Hollywood movies, everything's just this Frankfurt School nonsense about, oh, hey, look, all these groups are getting along and chanting and singing along, but, it's still going to be Blonde Man bad. And it's like, that's just effing disabled. Anyway, doesn't it kind of feel like women have been being erased for the past 10 years? Kind of creepy the way these left-wing guys treat women is disturbing. A woman is the feminine sacred earth mother. She carries the next generation, but now sterile men are replacing them. Where men are better women than women? No, a woman is, period. Like one of my science professors always said, he was discussing what science was, the hard sciences versus the study of a field. And he goes, science is, period. Math is science, physics is science. The other things are usually studies of areas. Anyway, is this Sodom and Gomorrah? Is it Weimar? How many times can I say that in a video? Yeah. Yes, it is. It happened before. It's all going to happen again. Anyway, if you want me to see a movie and review it, all you have to do is pay for the ticket, and it will happen. We'll walk down to my local theater. But I don't know. Maybe I think there might have to be a sliding scale for the movies. And honestly, I look around. I was looking at Fandango because I want to see how many people were buying tickets for the Marvels before I got mine. And there's like 3 people in the theater. There's nothing on the horizon for movies. I look at what's out now, and there's like the Freddy's movie. Okay, fair enough. That's one. And I looked at everything else. Nothing. When I was a kid, a long time ago, but the audience is actually pretty much my age, male, and 40s. There was a ton of movies in the 80s and 90s, and then that stuff and from before the 80s would just go on TV, and we got to see all that stuff. But you look around now, and you're like, whoa, I guess the 80s really was the peak of that kind of, silly, schlocky, fun Hollywood with the Goonies and the Gremlins kind of stuff, or Indiana Jones or Star Wars and Star Trek. I'm naming stuff off the top of my head. Like, those were huge, fun, silly movies. I'm not saying they're genius or anything, but you look around now, you're like, whoa, it's like there's a movie that people have some interest in every 6 months. Maybe. And that's about it. And a lot of the movies that people have interest, like someone was talking about the Batman, which I was led to believe that was going to be a huge hit, and it was a huge hit. And then you start looking at the numbers, and it's actually not the huge hit that you thought it was for the money they put into it, the advertising, and then what they got out of it versus domestic versus international. Like, a lot of these movies are making a little profit, but they're not like, oh, what do you mean the movie made $800 million? But then you look at what percentage they get and what they spent, and you're like, yeah, it's not these things aren't making what you think they're making. Where back in the day, some of these movies were just truly monster hits. But it's not only that, they went off to sell toys, clothing, like fast food tie-ins, all this other kind of stuff. And that's the one thing that modern movies are not doing. Even when they're making $1 billion, there's no tie-ins. Like, there's this other article on Variety about who's a guy, Anthony Daniels, who's played a C-3PO, and they're talking about he's selling some of his stuff, his costumes from the movies, and when he was the only actor who was in all of the Star Wars, all 9 Star Wars movies, but when he was in the Disney movies, they asked him if he wanted to they offered him to take some of the costumes home, and he said he didn't need it. His house he had plenty of stuff. He didn't need any of the Disney stuff. Cause like it's just going to take up space, and it's really not going to be worth anything. I think he's selling his helmet that they let him keep, which was cool. And the thing is, a lot of the stuff he said he had to rescue it from being destroyed, because when they made the movies in 77, 83, it's like they knew they were going to be big movies. They knew they were big movies, but they didn't think they were going to be this big. And so when they're done with the sets, they just destroy it. So he went and saved a bunch of the stuff, and they let him keep the helmet. And he's selling the helmet. Thing's going to sell for over $1 million because it's so iconic. But then you look at the Disney stuff, and yeah, it's okay. And the other thing about the Disney is when they went to go, there's a high dollar guy who makes toys, like the ceramic toys or something, and metal toys, like hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars for these toys. And someone did an interview with him because he sells old stuff. And then he said, well, what about the license for the new stuff? And he said, there's no demand for it. So they didn't make the high dollar toys for like Rose Tico or, I don't know, I can't get Finn, or who's the chick, the Mary Sue character, the English girl. There's no demand for the high dollar toys, where the old 77 Star Wars toys are still selling. You look at the cantina with all those crazy characters. It's like, yeah, everyone wanted one of those characters. Or Boba Fett. It was just so many ridiculous characters that kids were so desperate for that they sold out that first Christmas, and they had to sell like IOUs and stuff because kids were so on board with that. And then you look at Mary Sue, you're like, why did you guys? You got a chick in the main role, but the story's pretty much for boys. It's like, yeah, but the movie's made $2 billion. Yeah, but you didn't sell any toys, and there's probably no fast food tie-ins. Like people in the 70s and 80s, people, you go to somebody's home, drink Kool-Aid or something, and they had glasses with Star Wars glasses on them. That stuff was everywhere. Star Wars sheets and Star Wars, clothing. That stuff was more than the movies. And you look at the modern movies, you're like, oh, there's none of that. Why? Because the movies are just in and out of the theaters. And they're probably for an older audience. Millennials, probably Gen Z, but I don't think it's catching on with the kids. They're all on TikTok, and they were on Omegle, but they had to take that down. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. See you guys on the next episode.